The gavel falls and the room gasps. Mary Brown stands, no longer as a silent first wife, but as a storm finally laying claim to all the betrayals. The courtroom lights tonight won't just illuminate a verdict, they'll illuminate a legacy, ready to see who shatters and who puts it back together. Share your thoughts below. Did Mary wait too long? Or was it the right time? The first sound isn't the gavel, it's the click of Mary's heel against the polished floor, a steady metronome of resolve that turns every head before the judge even looks up. The courtroom breathes like a living thing, air vents humming, old wood releasing a faint resin scent, the dull shimmer of afternoon sun sliding across brass nameplates. Mary stands in a midnight blue blazer, shoulders squared, chin lifted, her own hands are not bare. They are shielded in manila folders and a spiral-bound reality, the sort you can't take back once read into evidence. Kody sits across from her at the defendant's table, arms crossed, jaw set like a padlock. Robyn sits next to him, eyes open but watchful, a tissue refolded into precise squares she keeps folding and refolding, as if balance would keep the day intact. Mary's voice is low at first, careful, almost too careful. Then it firms. She lays out the promise everyone remembers. 4 parcels, 4 futures, 1 family vision. The judge, a woman whose calm is steel with a velvet lining, asks for dates, documents, details. Mary gives them like stepping stones across a river she's already crossed in private. Behind her, Janelle leans forward, elbows resting on her knees, a silent amen in the flesh. Christine is there too, though not on the stand, but in the tension, remembrances of questions once asked, ones Kody deemed disloyal. The gallery is crowded with faces who've observed this family form, divide and redescribe their suffering as patient. If you were Mary, would you fight for land, or for the years that were swept away with it? The defense hinges on a straightforward narrative. Kody offered the most. Kody oversaw the scheme. Kody should be in charge. But the arithmetic of a shared life is not so straightforward. There's show income, speaking fees, brand endorsements woven with tears and talking heads, all earned by a choir, not a solo performer. Mary pushes open a folder and slides a photocopy across payment history, bank seals, deposits annotated in neat lettering. Another folder, an email chain that doesn't scream, but rather whispers ulterior motive. The judge reads, deliberate and precise. Kody's lawyer objects, but the objection lacks ground to take hold on. Foundation is paper, and it rests on a level plane. In flashback, the story changes. An afternoon in Flagstaff, late light on pine bark. Kody tracing lines in the dust with a stick. A porch here, a view there, he promises. And Mary nods because sometimes a promise is a life raft. The camera, your mind's eye, backs away to the here and now. To Mary stroking her thumb over a corner of the paper, as if tracing the edge of a photograph of the person you once were. Janelle sits next to her, writing 3 words in block letters in her legal pad. We were there. Keep watching. One message on page 3 is going to turn a misunderstanding into a map of intent. The judge poses one last question for this session. Mrs. Brown, do you want division or compensation? Mary doesn't flinch. I want what was promised, she replies, in whatever way the law provides. The clock above the door clicks. Robyn's tissue rips along the fold line, and the judge, seeing the time, calls a recess. People get up but don't go. No one wants to miss the next gasp. On her way back to her seat, Mary encounters Kody. He glances at her like a stranger does, like one who never expected she'd ever talk. The cliff materializes beneath everyone's feet. A clerk runs in with an envelope that's sealed with a letter from an office of realty, dated months before anyone knew, and the judge instructs counsel to come forward. The gallery leans forward as the seal is broken. It's not the paper that makes the room breathe, it's the date stamp. The date pierces the defense like a headlight through mist. The envelope yields a sequence, a deed draft, an internal note, a brief acknowledgement stamped received. The order matters. The order always matters. The judge studies the top page, then slides it in a careful arc toward both tables. We'll address admissibility, she says, but at first glance, this goes to notice and intent. Kody's jaw muscles work harder than his words. He neither speaks while his lawyer speaks everything. Preliminary paperwork. Exploratory. Not binding. But preliminary papers are blueprints you can take in your hand and carry on. They show you who is holding the tape measure and who is told to stand firm. Robyn moves, uncrosses, recrosses her ankles. Mary does not stir at all. Stillness is the loudest language in the room. Janelle's turn arrives like weather changing. She speaks in plain sentences made of lived hours. Tax notices, a trip to the county office, a clerk who pulled up records and frowned. He realized, she says, realized I'd been paying toward land my name wasn't on. The judge asks for corroboration. Janelle nods to her attorney, who sets down printouts. Payments in, taxes out. A ledger that reads like a story. Because it is. Rapid gut check. Do you think preliminaries can still be a guarantee when the people who paid were never informed it was altered? Cross-examination attempts to muddy the lines. Weren't you in doubt about constructing? Janelle's reply is a question. Is doubt a lawful justification for erasing a human? The gallery senses some quiet exhales. A reporter's pen taps twice, then halts. The judge reminds counsel to stay with the facts. So they do. The facts accumulate. An email from a broker suggests haste. Advise we formalize titles before intra-family discussions. Complicate logistics. Logistics. The word does the neat job of concealing what it bears. Flashback storytelling leaves us at a kitchen table. 4 plates, paper napkins, construction drawings like placemats. Christine wants to know about utilities. Janelle wants to know about easements. Robyn wants to know about closets. Mary says nothing, and observes the way Kody's hand manipulates the pen along 4 squares of promise. Present tense once more, that same hand taps the table now, restless. Keep with this, someone is going to say the quiet part loud, and it will shift the way you understand the entire plan. The defense retrieves their real estate liaison, who stumbles over a straightforward question. Who told you to place speed over consultation with family? He dances around, he identifies Kody. The judge's pen freezes. Counsel objects on wording. Sustained. The point still makes it. From the rear bench, a process server rises and holds up a slim binder. Supplemental disclosures. The judge allows the filing. Inside, an email exchange with a subject line no one can ever unhear. Finalize before questions. The subject line isn't boisterous. It's incisive. It edges between defense and doubt, and opens a seam you can't sew shut. We read along in the mind's eye as the lawyer for Mary strides slow, measured steps. Your Honor, this thread proves sequence, awareness, and coordination. The first email is Kody's, let's get titles finalized. Too many cooks will slow things down. The second is a response. Agreed. Best to get filings done before questions get out of hand. The third, Robyn's, falls like a final puzzle piece. We don't want it to get ugly. Let's get it over before they realize. There is commotion in the gallery. The judge calls for silence. The words are not a verdict, but they are an opening. Robyn steps forward. Her hands clasp, unclasp. Her voice reaches out towards the safe shore of I didn't know. But the tide keeps pulling it back. I trusted him, she says. And trust here is not an armor in this room. It is a road that still has to account for where it goes. Mary observes with a face of granite that recalls being river clay. Kody glares at his cuffs, then at the overhead light, then nowhere. If trust signed the papers, who bears the burden when trust was used as a tool? Cross-examination is gentle and incisive, the manner of a surgeon gentle and incisive. Did you sign documents putting parcels in only 2 names? Yes. Were you aware others thought in a 4-way split? At the time I thought plans had changed. Who told you that? Nothing. The courtroom learns a new definition for the word heavy. The story expands. We venture outdoors in retrospect to a hillside winter at Coyote Pass, the wind weaving a chillier sweater than any cardigan might. Mary was once there, coat pockets stuffed into her hands, attempting to sense a future that kept sliding like powder snow off a boot. She is heard in voiceover saying, "Waiting doesn't build houses." Inside again, the judge leans forward. Miss Brown, the younger. Robyn, please understand, not reading thoroughly is not a defense when you benefit thoroughly. The defense pivots to numbers. They love numbers because numbers feel certain. 92%, Kody repeats, a figure he wields like a flashlight in a storm. But the battery is low. Mary's attorney asks where the 92 came from. Which streams, which accounts, which signatures. The room starts understanding that shared income can't be conveniently singular once it hits the ledger. Don't blink. One line item is about to separate who paid from who performed the labor that got paid. They traced deposits from a joint production payment into an account that funded land fees, while Mary's boutique deposits and Janelle's checks amortized tax burdens and surveys. The arithmetic becomes a testimony of labor, some on screen, some in silence, all of it co-authored. The judge adjourns tomorrow to close evidence. As the people get up, a messenger rushes in with a flash drive from the network, a legal authorized clip reel. The room will get what the edit did not. The lights are lowered and history ceases to be rumor. On the screen, timestamps flash like heart monitors informing you who was alive during every promise. The reel starts not aired moments. Long takes nobody was acting for the cut. Kody at a picnic table, sketching quadrants. Legacy, he says. Tapping wood. Equal. Another take, Mary asking, even if the law changes. Kody reply laughs, warm and certain, in every way that matters. The words bloom and then bruise, as the next clip rolls. An office candid, Kody on the phone. We'll fast-track titles. Family meetings slow this kind of thing. He doesn't say who's in the room. The camera doesn't need him to. Robyn's breath hastens in the here and now. She forms an approximation of prayer or apology. Janelle glances down at her palms and inclines her head once, as if a person hearing an echo for the first time. The judge observes without winking, her pen set down alongside the legal pad. The room is learning what cuts conceal, and what unedited material discloses, namely that context is a form of confession. When you see the promise with your own eyes, does it change the way you hear the excuse? The defense seeks intent, aspirational talk, TV language, family morale, but the reel contains more than pep. It contains planning, survey stakes in a still frame, Kody pacing off, counting out loud, a producer querying, 4 houses, Kody smiling, 4. The next clip is subdued. Mary on a porch step alone, narrating into the twilit dusk that she wants to believe, not only in land, in being counted. Back to live testimony. Mary returns to the stand, and the narrative shifts to a softer tone. She does not talk like a plaintiff anymore. She talks like someone who has concluded that a life may begin in any chapter. I stayed, she says. I kept hoping the story had a middle I hadn't reached yet. The gallery grips that sentence like you grip a warm mug. 2 hands. Careful. The judge poses one question that will haunt Miss Brown. What would justice look like to you? Mary thinks about it. Justice looks like not being erased. Picture the bravery required to request your name back under the watchful eyes of the person who stole it from you. The segment ends on a procedural beat. Exhibits entered, objections upheld. But the emotions don't tidily file. When the judge calls for a brief recess, Kody rises swiftly. His chair scrapes. For one beat you catch the patriarch in him attempting to repiece the room, then stalling. He remains seated. He adjusts his tie that doesn't require adjusting. A bailiff comes to the bench with a message. The judge reads it, then glances up. We will continue with Mr. Brown's testimony, under oath and under clarification as to financial distribution. The phrase clarification falls like thunder you only hear after the lightning. There's a drop in temperature you can sense when the person who authored the rules is asked to read them aloud. Kody takes the oath, voice level, eyes narrowed into the safe zone just above the judge's head. The initial questions are scaffolding, names, jobs, dates, and then the frame snaps into place. Who made the determination about how show income was split? He orbits, attempts to turn it into a committee of atmospherics. Ultimately, the attorney asks, ultimately I signed off. The court reporter's keys click like hail on a tin roof. They track the money, not deposits alone, but the reasoning. Kody calls on leadership, accountability, the weight of vision. He employs the figure once more, 92. And the story widens the focus, how a figure can be true and false at the same time, depending on where you are when you tally. The lawyer inquires as to who the unseeable work belonged to shooting days, when you'd rather weep, interviews when you'd rather be silent, brand partnerships that wouldn't happen without the wives' faces and the children's giggles. Did that work get accounted for on the ledger? A pause that lasts 1 lifetime and 3 seconds. It was complicated. When complicated pays the bills. Who holds the receipt? Robyn observes him, something cracking and setting hard simultaneously. She is not beyond the decision, nor is she constructed to hold them on her own. Mary sits upright, not in rebellion, but in congruence with herself. Janelle's pen is quiet. The notes are finished. The tale writes itself now. The judge interrupts. Mr. Brown, did you give notice to Miss Brown? either one of deed transfers ahead of time? No. Did you use common money to buy titles excluding them? Yes. Do you think that was consistent with previous representation? I thought it was essential. The judge's silence speaks what the law will ultimately put into words. The story skips ahead to the gallery for a breath. Faces that have witnessed their own promises stretched thin as paper, their own names absent from contracts and credit. There's anger here. Yes, but also understanding. The kind that pulls strangers into a quiet jury of the human heart. Stay, his next response isn't loud. But it's the moment power in this room shifts hands. Mr. Brown, the voice of the attorney softened, comes almost as a kind one. Do you regret not having informed them? He might have said a lot of things. He says, I regret that it had to come to this. The room detects the distinction. So does the judge. Counsel, she instructs, prepare closing. The clock marks the time. Outdoors, clouds congregate like a curtain before a last act. As the judge stands up, a dull rumble of thunder makes its way across the ceiling. Verdict day tomorrow, or the day the court decrees a remedy. None may spin. Mary sorts out her folder, breathes once, and for the first time in years, exits not behind someone, but ahead. Opening microhook for this section. The last act of truth starts not with words, but with silence, the sort that vibrates before the storm, where all of us know something irrevocable is about to happen. The morning after, the courthouse seems otherworldly. Even the marble floor seems chillier under the glare of fluorescent lights. Outside, news trucks clog the street, satellite dishes twirling upward like mechanical flowers reaching for a signal. Inside, all seats are filled. Fans, reporters, estranged relatives, they've all come for what threatens to be the most important testimony so far. Mary enters first, shoulders set, posture erect, face serene, but under the serene is a current, the sort of current that carves canyons. Janelle comes behind, a steady presence beside her, legal pad clutched as a weapon of quiet conviction. Across the aisle, Kody enters late. His face is pinched, and the bravado that used to envelop him like armor has begun to unravel. Robyn is behind her, holding a leather binder tightly against her chest, speaking softly as if in a prayer. The judge arrives, and the whole courtroom stands. Seated, she doesn't tarry. Mr. Brown, she states matter-of-factly, the court is now prepared to take closing testimony on your financial planning, property allocation, and your management of joint accounts. Kody clears his throat. His lawyer puts a comforting hand on his shoulder, but it doesn't silence the slight tremor in his voice. For the first time, Kody attempts a new strategy, one that's nearly foreign to him: vulnerability. I made mistakes, he starts, his voice measured carefully. But everything I did for the family. I bore the cost of living. I made sure we had a future. I was the provider. But the opposing attorney is prepared. Mr. Brown, she cuts in brusquely. Would you call denying your wife's legal title? Wives who supported financially, emotionally, and visibly the very enterprises that supported this property. Part of supporting your family. Undefined. Kody fidgets in his chair. I didn't leave them out. I just maximized efficiency. Efficiency is not justice, and prioritizing power is not the same as protecting a family. Undefined. The courtroom hums with whispers. Mary's lawyer approaches the bench and clicks on a small screen, a presentation of financial records, emails, and legal filing. This, she says, pointing to the screen, is a timeline of Mr. Brown's actions, each one deliberate, each one showing intent to consolidate control. Slide by slide, the lies unfold: deposits from Mary, receipts for property taxes, paid by Janelle, contracts signed based on equality, all culminating in deeds signed solely by Kody and Robyn. The gallery is quiet, the anticipation, like glass on the verge of breaking. Kody's composure begins to slip. I built this, he blurts out suddenly, voice rising. I'm the one who made this family possible. Without me, there is no show, no income, no land. The judge's gaze sharpens. Mr. Brown, she warns, this is a courtroom, not a stage. Control your tone. Janelle leans in slightly toward Mary, her voice hardly above a whisper. There it is, she says. The truth he's been hiding behind all these years. It was never about family, it was about control. The mask is cracking, and once it falls, the truth will change everything. As Kody goes on, Robyn looks down at the table, her hands shaking. She knows she is no longer certain if she's standing up for a husband or a legacy, and whether they're worth what they cost. Mary permits herself the first smile in weeks during the trial, as she reflects on this moment. It is not victory. It is something more profound, a recognition that the power balance is shifting, that she is no longer the one who has stood in the shadow. The judge declares that tomorrow's hearing will feature reading of unspecified TLC communications, evidence said to hold internal memos that will vindicate Kody or decimate his defense completely. The courtroom has witnessed lies, tears, and half-truths, but what is about to be disclosed isn't a testimony, it's evidence, and evidence has no feelings, no favorites, and no mercy. The next day, the courthouse is abuzz even before the doors open. There are clusters of reporters in hushed conversations, speculating about the enigmatic TLC files to be filed today. Nobody knows what's specifically inside, but everybody knows they can make or destroy this case. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere is charged. You can practically hear faster beats with each passing tick of the clock. Mary sits at the plaintiff's table, relaxed posture, keen eyes, a woman prepared to see decades of manipulation slowly unwind in public. To her side, Janelle thumbed through a thick binder of pages, lips pursed together. Across from her, Kody drums fingers on the desk, a nervous, involuntary beat that belies the tempest brewing beneath his skin. Robyn doesn't make eye contact with anyone, her eyes red and puffy from the night's crying, her face white. Court is now in session, the judge announces, and the hush that falls is absolute. Mary's attorney steps forward, a silver flash drive in hand. "Your Honor," she says, her tone steady, "this evidence contains unreleased network communications between TLC producers and Mr. and Mrs. Brown. It was obtained via subpoena. The defense has had access to this material for 48 hours. The bailiff puts the drive into the court's projection system, and the first document shows up on the big screen, an innocuous-looking email from January 2021. It's from a TLC executive to Kody. We've double-checked with legal that land ownership documents need to include all parties if the story of shared family heritage is going to hold together on camera. Fans demand equality, and we have to steer clear of accusations of favoritism." The courtroom whispers. Kody squirms. Another email appears, sent in February 2021. This one by Kody to the same executive. "We're going in a different direction. I've decided Robyn and I will handle the legal side privately. The others will benefit indirectly through the show and family trust. They don't need to be involved in ownership. It's one thing to go back on your word, it's another to put it in writing." The courtroom explodes. Gasp. Whispers. A woman in the audience actually puts her hands over her mouth. Even the judge's usually impassive face shows a flash of shock. "Mr. Brown," she says slowly, "is this your email?" Kody clears his throat. "It looks like. Did you notify the other parties of this determination?" Kody pauses. "Not officially." The second bit of evidence is worse still. A production memo weeks prior to the land transfer. In it, a producer at TLC frets about how to deal with expected backlash in case two wives find their names are omitted from the deeds. Another response, purportedly by Robyn, recommends, "We can rephrase it as an economic imperative. They were less invested. That will be easier for the audience to hear." Mary shuts her eyes, bracing herself as betrayal weighs heavily. Janelle glares ahead, her white knuckles against the table. The lawyer for Kody attempts to protest, but the judge cuts him off. "These are direct communications to motive and intent," she says. "They will stay in evidence. The story was never real. It was a script, and they were never supposed to be equals." Cross-examination is underway, and Mary's lawyer does not waste any time. "Mr. Brown, is it true you intentionally left Mary and Janelle out while still publicly declaring the land was for all four wives? I thought it was best for the family. Did you benefit financially from their ongoing participation on the show?" "Yes." "Did they contribute to the property fund?" "Yes." "And yet you decided to take them entirely out of ownership?" Kody hard exhales. "Yes." The attorney addresses Robyn. "Mrs. Brown, you were copied on these emails. You participated in the decision to deceive the public as well as the family, didn't you?" Robyn's lips quiver. I just did what I thought was best as per Kody's thinking. I trusted him." "Trusted him," the attorney echoes, tone slicing like glass, "or facilitated him." Robyn's silence speaks volumes. Silence isn't innocence, it's consent. The last bombshell arrives in the guise of a confidential producer memo. one that was never intended to be publicly released. It indicates that TLC cautioned Kody that omitting wives from ownership could amount to fraudulent misrepresentation if not for legal contracts being aligned with what occurred on TV. Kody accepted the caution, and did just that. The judge leans forward. Mr. Brown, she says tightly, this court is now confronted with proof that you knowingly disobeyed verbal, contractual, and monetary obligations, and benefited thereby. Do you want to clarify your statement? Kody's reply is barely above a whisper. No, Your Honor. For the first time, the patriarch has no words, and in that silence his empire starts to fall apart. The gallery is shocked. The carefully constructed story of more than a decade, the polygamist family united by love, the common dream, the shared legacy, is revealed to be a manipulative ploy. And the man behind it all is not as inviolate as he once was. The judge clears her throat and states, tomorrow this court will be hearing final closing arguments and rendering a preliminary ruling on damages, restitution, and possible forced sale of the Coyote Pass property. Kody falls back in his chair, his eyes vacant. Across the room, Mary finally breathes in, not with relief, but with anticipation. The finish line is in sight, and justice is within reach than ever before. The atmosphere inside the courtroom is thick with tension, as if 3 decades of deceit weighs heavily on all present. What started as a court dispute over land has now turned into an accounting for breach of trust, honor, and what constitutes a family. The last day comes on stormy weather. Rain patters methodically on the courthouse windows as if nature itself is keeping time with the drama within. Reporters are already stationed outside before sunrise, cameras aimed at the door. Within, the room is more crowded than it has ever been through the trial. Estranged family members, ex-fans, even distant relatives who once maintained vociferous defenses of Kody's choices now sit quietly, awaiting the finale they never imagined would come. Mary enters without a sheet of paper in sight in her hands. She no longer requires them. The evidence has said it all. Janelle follows close on her heels, eyes intent and determined. Robyn, on the other side of the room, is spent. Mascara smears dried on her cheeks from the previous night. And Kody is a shadow of the man he used to be. The swagger is gone, the confident patriarch. In his place is a man who must confront accountability. Court is now in session, the judge announces. The murmurs vanish. The world holds its breath. Mary's attorney steps forward to deliver closing argument. Your Honor, she begins, voice calm but laced with fire. This is not a case about property. This is a case about truth. Of promises made to women who created a life, a family, and a legacy, only to be cut out of it without notice. The proof is overwhelming. Mr. Brown employed combined income, family resources, and the public perception of equality shared for his own enrichment at the expense of those whose labor made his own accomplishment possible. That is not betrayal. That is fraud. And it's time the law recognizes it. She stops and addresses the gallery. For 3 decades, Mary Brown was instructed to wait, to trust, to believe. But blind trust without open transparency is exploitation. Today we request that this court set right what ought never to have occurred. This isn't vengeance. It's reclamation. Of land, of voice, of self. The defense gets up, grasping at a tale that's paper thin now. Your Honor, Mr. Brown never behaved maliciously. He felt he was looking out for the family. His motive was responsibility, not greed. But the judge cuts him off. Responsibility doesn't justify exclusion. And protection isn't protection if the people you are trying to protect are the same ones you're hurting. The gallery leans forward in their chairs. Even the ones who used to question Mary can sense the tide turning. Robyn's attorney makes one last appeal. My client is truly sorry for any misunderstanding. But the phrase misunderstanding sounds like nothing more than an empty statement now. It rings in the courtroom like a false statement repeatedly repeated. Then Mary stands up to speak for herself. Not as a plaintiff, not as a victim, but as a woman taking back her narrative. I was told that loyalty was important, she says, her voice shaking but firm. I was told that silence was strength. But silence didn't create homes. Silence didn't get deep. Silence didn't keep me safe. I had believed in a vision of family, a family that never existed for him. But here today, I do not come before you to plead to be included, but to insist on justice. The moment you stop asking to be valued is the moment you become unstoppable. The courtroom erupts in quiet tears. Even some jurors wipe their eyes. Robyn stares down at her lap, unable to meet Mary's gaze. Kody shifts uncomfortably. the weight of her words sinking deeper than any verdict could. The judge draws in a deep breath and starts reading. This court holds that there was adequate evidence that Mr. Kody Brown and Mrs. Robyn Brown committed acts of misrepresentation, financial concealment, and violation of the implied fiduciary duty. Also, this court acknowledges that verbal, emotional, and financial obligations were made with Mrs. Mary Brown and Mrs. Janelle Brown, and were violated. A silence descends as the ruling is read. It is the order of this court that the Kody Pass property be revalued, and that Mrs. Mary Brown and Mrs. Janelle Brown be monetarily compensated at today's market value, payment to be made within 90 days. In the event that this condition is not fulfilled, the property will be sold, and the proceeds divided equally, 25% to each of the original 4 spouses. There's silence for a moment, complete gasping silence, and then Mary breathes out. It's not a heroic gasp or a shout of triumph. It's a soft, steady breath, the noise of liberty. Janelle reaches across and squeezes her hand. Robyn across the aisle dissolves into complete sobs, weeping into her hands. Kody looks at the floor, mouth agape, speechless. And in that way, the narrative he composed around himself is no longer his to manipulate. Outside the courthouse, the world responds in real time. Reporters surge forward. Cameras flash. Social media erupts. Headlines flood timelines. Mary Brown wins landmark case against Kody. Judge rules equal divvying up in sister wives' property war. Justice at last. Mary stands on the steps of the courthouse and turns to the cameras. "I didn't do this to ruin anyone," she says quietly. "I did this so I wouldn't keep disappearing. And I hope every viewer out there understands. You're never too old, too tired, or too forgotten to begin again." Cheers ring out. Supporters chant her name. For the first time, the story is hers. As the credits for this chapter roll, a silent question hangs in the air. A question only you, the viewer, can answer. If you were in Mary's position, after all the betrayal, after all the silence, would you have walked away, or stood and fought for what was yours? Leave your answer in the comments below. Because this tale isn't just about the Browns, it's about every voice that's ever been muzzled, and ultimately decides to growl. The verdict might have been handed down, but the ripple effects are only just starting. What took place within that courtroom was greater than a victory in court. It was the beginning of a reckoning that would shake the Brown family to its core. Outside the courthouse, the bedlam is instantaneous. Camera flashes light up the air, and overlapping shouts as reporters cluster the steps. Microphones thrust out like spears at anyone who will talk. Headlines already streaming across the internet. Social media pages blowing up with hashtags such as #JusticeForMary, #KodyPassVerdict, and #SisterWivesScandal. Mary and Janelle emerge together, side by side. No longer just sister wives, but allies who fought and won a war that was never supposed to happen. They're greeted by cheers and tears from supporters, some of whom have followed their story for over a decade. "We're so proud of you," one woman shouts. "You gave us courage," cries another. Mary presents a small wave, the face tranquil but firm. This is not victory for her. This is closure. Behind the scenes, Kody hangs back, not wanting to confront the cameras. His lawyer incites him to say something, but he turns his head. Not today. It is a low, almost shattered sound. The man who once strutted confidently on television screens now looks like a ghost of himself. The patriarch dethroned not by scandal or rumor, but by truth. Robyn clutches his arm, her face pale and streaked with tears. "We'll figure it out," she whispers. But Kody doesn't respond. For the first time in decades, he has nothing to say. When power is constructed on control, losing control equates to losing everything. Undefined, the news swamps all the major media for days. Morning show talk shows analyze the legal ramifications. Legal scholars label the verdict a landmark moment in spousal rights in non-traditional family arrangements. Opinion pieces discuss how reality television erased the distinction between entertainment and exploitation. And throughout the internet, public opinion shifts sharply against Kody and Robyn. Kody spent years preaching equality and partnership, reads one op-ed. Now we know it was a script. And the real story was betrayal. Another headline lands an even more devastating blow. The man who wanted it all, and lost it all. Meanwhile, the ripple effects begin to work their way within the Brown family itself. Several of the grown children, many of whom had stayed silent throughout the trial, begin to pipe up. Gwendolyn writes on Twitter, "Mom and Mary were always in the right. They deserve that property. Leon puts a one-word note on Instagram. Truth always wins. Even a few of Kody's sons, once blindly devoted, pull back. He made a fortune from our lives, one of them says, and now that fortune is collapsing. At the headquarters of TLC, executives meet in emergency session. The show that used to present a picture of nonconformist love and perseverance is now a hotbed of controversy. Sponsors contemplate pulling out. Viewers call for answers. Word circulates that the network is exploring a complete overhaul, or even scrapping Sister Wives entirely. The courtroom may have delivered justice, but public opinion delivers the final sentence. But for Meri, it doesn't matter anymore. In the weeks after the trial, she actively refuses interviews and television spots. Instead, she retreats into something more subdued, something that belongs to her. She purchases a small cabin-style home in Park City, Utah, with part of her court-awarded settlement. It is not luxurious or overdone, but it's breathtaking in its simplicity. Every square inch of it belongs to her. Every nail, every floorboard, every dawn arriving through the windows. One night, she streams on social media from the porch of the new home. "I wanted you all to see this," she whispers, camera scanning the view. "It's not only a house. It's evidence that you can rebuild, that you can start again, no matter how late it feels." The comments roll in. "You're an inspiration. This is the real happily ever after. Thank you for showing us that leaving isn't weakness, it's strength." Sometimes, the greatest revenge is building a life where betrayal has no place. In Flagstaff again, Kody's world appears quite different. TLC halts production for the time being, citing creative restructuring. Robyn has retreated almost completely from the spotlight. Paparazzi snap her out making solo errands, clearly distraught and sporting sunglasses to conceal puffy eyes. The couple's marriage is said to be strained to the breaking point. They're even rumored to be living apart, according to some reports. But perhaps most vividly, there is Kody's solitude. Once engulfed in wives, kids, and cameras, he now spends most days by himself in the big house he used to share with Robyn. His phone doesn't ring. Pitches for public events have disappeared. And every news article that includes his name comes with thousands of irate comments. For a man who previously lived off of attention and power, being in the shadows is a worse punishment than any court injunction. This is what happens when the world sees the truth. They stop listening to the lies. But even in the wake of all the aftermath, Meri's message hasn't changed. In an interview several weeks later, her only one after the verdict, she distills it into one forceful sentence. "This was never about destroying someone. It was about reclaiming myself." The interviewer hesitates. "And do you feel you've done that?" Meri smiles, a smile of quiet confidence, not a victorious smile, but one of reassurance. "Yes," she replies. "For the first time in 30 years I finally feel free. But this is not the end of the story." Gossip of an appeal starts to circulate. Rumors that Kody and Robyn will not go quietly into the night. And though Meri has won the fight, the war over truth, and over the family legacy, may only just be commencing. Just when everyone believed the war was finally over, a new battle line is drawn. The ruling shook the world, but for Kody Brown, defeat was never in the equation. And this time, the battle is going into darker, more desperate grounds. 3 weeks since the history-making ruling, peace is not yet found. The Brown family is still divided, the fan base split, and the media firestorm not yet dissipated. But under the public controversy, something else is percolating, something more sinister. Late one night, court papers quietly appear online. Kody Brown has appealed. The word gets around fast. Legal experts descend on TV panels. "It's a gamble," says one lawyer. But Kody's lawyers seem to be saying that the initial decision was unfair, that the court crossed the line by taking verbal promises as binding. A second analyst shakes her head. They're not trying to dispute the evidence. They can't. They're trying to dispute what constitutes family. Meri receives the news while having coffee on the porch of her new Utah cabin. At first, she laughs, not out of humor but disbelief. "Of course he appealed," she murmurs to herself. "He can't stand not having control." Janelle calls moments later. "We knew this was coming," she says, "but we'll fight it." Again, when abusers lose control, they don't apologize, they escalate. The appeal reignites old hurts and new. On social media, Kody's few remaining defenders defend him, asserting the court overstepped and that men's property rights are being threatened. But they are in the minority. #stop the appeal and #justice for Meri. and Janelle trend for days. Even longtime Sister Wives viewers, who used to feel sorry for Kody, are now denouncing him. This isn't about land anymore. One commenter writes, it's about ego. In interviews, Kody is still defiant. This case was founded upon lies and manipulation. He asserts in an interview with a local news station, I supported this family. I created everything. I won't allow an unfair judge ruin my life's work. The video goes viral, not because of what he says, but the defensive, bitter responses he makes. It's like he still doesn't get it. One analyst observes, this was never about money. It was about accountability. While that's happening, Mary's lawyers prepare for their rebuttal. They understand the appeal will be daunting, not because Kody's case is strong, but because appeals take a long time. They're draining, and they're costly. He's attempting to wear you down, advises Janelle's lawyer. This is no longer about prevailing in court. It's about keeping this going until you wear out. Mary nods, then he'll be waiting a long time. Sometimes the actual victory is not in the judgment. It's in not giving up after it. Behind the scenes, the appeal also uncovers something unexpected, new evidence. During discovery, Mary's attorneys request additional financial records from TLC and associated production companies. What they find is staggering, a hidden network of shell accounts linked to Kody and Robyn, where portions of show income were funneled without disclosure. Over $1.2 million was moved into these accounts over the years, money that should have been part of the family trust. The revelation changes everything. This isn't just a property dispute anymore. Mary's lead attorney says grimly, this is potential financial fraud. They file a motion to include the new evidence in the appeal proceedings. If accepted, it could lead to a criminal investigation, something Kody's legal team is desperate to avoid. The tension becomes incandescent when Mary and Kody run into each other at a pre-appeal hearing. The air is frosty. Kody won't even look at her, gazing straight ahead like she's not even there. But Mary plows past him, stands still for a moment, and whispers softly, I'm not afraid of you anymore. He doesn't say a word, but the expression on his face is enough. The fear he once mastered is gone. The moment you stop fearing someone's power is the moment they lose it completely. The media frenzy mounts. Talk shows discuss whether Kody's popularity is justice or revenge. Internet petitions go around calling for TLC to sever all ties from him. Even former friends and supporters distance themselves. One family acquaintance says to a reporter, this isn't the same man we used to know. He's fixated on winning, even if it ruins everything. And yet, even in the din, Mary is serene. She spends much of her time working voluntarily for a women's legal aid foundation, relating her experience to those who find themselves stuck in unjust relationships. If my case can help one person discover their voice, she states in a live kunda, then all of this was not for nothing. Meanwhile, Robyn appears increasingly less frequently. Paparazzi snap photos of her entering an office building alone. Rumors fly that she has retained her own attorney, not to aid Kody's appeal, but to defend herself in case the financial probe proceeds. There's trouble in paradise, one tabloid declares. And it's not just legal, it's personal. When alliances are formed on deceptions, the truth will sooner or later destroy them. The episode concludes with a shocking revelation. One night, late, a confidential memo from TLC's legal department is leaked by an anonymous source. In it, they threaten to sue if the show continues to run, because it could render the network liable if any more financial impropriety were to be discovered. The memo concludes on a haunting note. If these allegations prove true, we may have no choice but to suspend all contracts with the Brown family indefinitely. The future is in doubt. The appeal is pending. A possible criminal investigation awaits. And the family that once took pride in forever might be facing an end no one saw coming. The only thing left to ask now is, will Kody double down or finally concede defeat? The battle in the courtroom was ruthless. The appeal was desperate. But nothing, not even Kody's ego, could prepare the Browns for what lay ahead. Because this time, it's no longer a family dispute. It's the law closing in. It starts quietly, the way storms often do, with whispers and sealed documents. A week after Mary's legal team files their motion to include the newly discovered bank records, a letter arrives from the Arizona Department of Financial Crimes. It's brief, almost cold in tone. "We are opening a preliminary investigation into allegations of misappropriation of shared funds and financial concealment." The moment Mary's attorney reads it aloud, the entire room falls silent. This, he speaks deliberately, is not a civil issue anymore. It's criminal. The news is like a freight train to Kody. For the very first time, the man who never imagined he could be touched by anything understands that he may lose not only money or property, he may lose his liberty. He bursts into his attorney's office and pounds a newspaper on the desk. "They're trying to destroy me," he yells. His lawyer doesn't respond immediately. "Kody," he says, carefully, "if there's proof that show income was hidden from the family trust, and if those funds were used without disclosure, this could escalate into charges. We're talking fraud, possibly embezzlement." On the other side of town, Mary gets the same letter, but her response couldn't be more opposite. There is no victory dance, no smug grin, only a long sigh. "This wasn't about getting him jailed," she says softly. "It was about making him see that he couldn't erase us." Janelle nods, her expression set. "He erased us long before the money. This is just the part he can't sweet-talk his way out of." Once justice shifts from the court of law to the criminal court, the narrative is different, because now it is no longer about winning. It's about repercussion. The probe mushrooming fast. Subpoenas are served. Bank statements are retrieved. Prior emails, the ones Kody believed he erased, are extracted from cloud storage. And what they uncover presents a pitiless picture. Cash from shared accounts transferred to empty LLCs, company profits channeled into individual investment portfolios, and payments from TLC termed consulting fees to prevent dividing them with the wives. More than $2.4 million is currently unaccounted for. As the walls begin to close in, Kody starts to unravel on public display. He rants on a live stream, blaming feminist courts and biased judges. He accuses Mary and Janelle of being greedy, and accuses TLC of forsaking him. Each furious outburst only adds to the public's outrage. "He's digging his own grave," says one legal analyst. "If I were representing him, I'd cut the camera and have him shut up." Meanwhile, Robyn goes into crisis mode. Paparazzi snap her paying visits to a different law firm, one that handles cooperation agreements. Whispers fly that she's negotiating a deal with investigators to get out of being charged herself. When accosted by reporters, she'll only admit, "I'm doing what I have to do to protect my children." When loyalty becomes liability, even the most devoted allies start saving themselves. Then comes the bombshell. An insider turns. A one-time Brown family accountant offers to cooperate with authorities in return for immunity. Under oath, he testifies about how Kody directed him to keep things off the books and keep the wives from ever seeing the full figures. He speaks of meetings during which Kody directed him to make payments into accounts in Robyn's name. And most damning of all, he creates handwritten memos, in Kody's own hand, spelling out a scheme to limit legal exposure by isolating the trust. The disclosures are devastating. Mary's lawyer is shocked. "This is bigger than we thought," he says. "This isn't just about land. This is a systemic attempt to cut the women out of every financial decision for over a decade." The truth always leaves a trail, and once that trail is followed, there's nowhere left to hide. The probe has enough evidence to bring in a grand jury now. Subpoenas are issued to TLC executives, ex-producers, and even the family accountant. In private deliberation, prosecutors consider their choices. Would they indict a reality TV star? Would they charge him and Robyn with fiscal crimes related to the show? Lawyers ponder the possibility. Meanwhile, Mary and Janelle try to keep their lives moving forward. Mary focuses on her cabin project, launching a small online boutique to rebuild her independence. Janelle begins working with a nonprofit that helps women secure legal representation in family disputes. "We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore," Janelle says during an interview. "We're fighting for every woman who was told her work and worth didn't count." But Kody isn't finished. In a desperate attempt to rescue himself, he issues a statement blaming Mary and Janelle for a coordinated smear campaign, and implying the TLC orchestrated the storyline in an effort to create higher ratings. The statement goes off the rails. Fans overwhelm social media with screenshots, court documents, and legal filings that debunk his accusations. "Gaslighting won't save you this time," one of the popular posts says. Facts. Manipulation. When you create your empire out of lies, the truth doesn't simply bring it down, it buries. When the session ends, the Brown family name that was once synonymous with plural love and strength is now synonymous with fraud, betrayal, and scandal. TLC silently announces that the program is in an indefinite suspension. Sponsors pull out. Speaking invitations disappear. The world that Kody created is crumbling, brick by brick. Late one night, a knock is heard throughout the Brown home. When Kody finally opens the door, two federal investigators are standing on the porch. "Mr. Brown," one of them says, holding up a badge. "We want to talk with you about a federal investigation into suspected wire fraud and financial misappropriation." And just like that, the narrative turns again. From a court fight to a criminal investigation that might culminate in handcuffs. It started with a promise broken and was finished with a gavel. But before the book finally closes, the world will witness one final twist. One that no one, not even Kody Brown himself, could see coming. The grand jury hearing morning breaks cool and gray. The mood to match the storm to break. News vans clog the streets outside the federal courthouse and reporters shout into cameras. Protesters carry placards with justice for Mary and Janelle. Fraud has consequences and no one is above the law. What was initially a family squabble has grown into a national headline. Inside, the atmosphere is stifling. Kody comes accompanied by his lawyers, his proud stride now a cumbersome, plodding one. Robyn trails behind a few paces, eyes puffy and red from sleepless nights. She carries a rosary clutched in one hand, muttering prayers to herself. On the other side of the hallway, Mary and Janelle sit with their lawyer. They share a muted nod, not one of victory, but of solidarity. The courtroom falls silent as the federal prosecutor starts off. "Ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury, this case is about betrayal, not only of trust, but of the law. It's a tale of how joint income, public reputation, and family obligations were distorted into a personal dynasty. It's about deception so calculated it crossed from unethical to criminal. The proof is incriminating. The hidden accounts, the doctored tax returns, the message directing an accountant to minimize visibility of shared funds. Worse yet, a financial transaction being called consulting fee to an offshore account of one of Kody's LLCs. The members of the jury look at each other. Everyone understands what this implies. This isn't merely fraud. This is federal wire fraud. When greed knows no borders, it ceases to be a blunder and becomes a felony. Then the occasion of utter astonishment. Robyn testifies, not as a co-defendant, but as a cooperating witness. Gasps murmur through the courtroom. "I didn't want it to come this far," she whispers, her voice shaking. "I trusted him. I trusted everything he said, but I can't protect him anymore. Not after what I've seen." She hands over a series of encrypted messages between herself and Kody. Messages in which he explicitly instructs her to funds before Mary starts snooping and keep paperwork vague. Kody's face drains of color. His own wife, the woman he once called his soulmate, has just detonated his defense. The betrayal cuts deeper than anything Mary or Janelle ever did. "I'm sorry," Robyn whispers, tears streaming down her. "I was complicit. But I'm done being silent." Silence can protect a liar, but eventually it becomes a confession. The grand jury huddles for hours. Out in the hallway, the press lingers like vultures hovering over a corpse. At last, the doors swing open. The foreperson stands and reads the verdict. "We, the members of the grand jury, find probable cause to indict Mr. Kody Brown on charges of wire fraud, tax evasion, and misappropriation of joint funds." A gasp of collective shock rises. Kody's knees go wobbly. He holds onto the table to avoid falling. The judge's voice stern. "Mr. Brown, you will turn over your passport and bail will be determined pending trial." The formerly untouchable patriarch is now a criminal defendant. Outside the courthouse, it's a free-for-all. Cameras pop. Microphones encroach. Reporters yell questions. "Do you have anything to say, Mr. Brown? Did you cheat your family? Do you regret it?" Kody doesn't respond. His face is set in humiliation and rage. Robyn hurries along behind him, under the protection of her lawyer. Mary and Janelle, standing at the head of the courthouse steps, stand in stunned silence as he fades into the backseat of a waiting car. Power built on deception will always collapse. and when it does, it buries. Months later, the trial gets underway. Kody enters not guilty pleas to all counts, but the evidence. Robyn testifies against. The old accountant testifies. TLC executives testify. Even the producer of the show gets on the stand, explaining how Kody coerced the network into crafting storylines based on a false mythology of harmony. The prosecution refers to it as a reality show constructed on and bankrolled with theft. Ultimately, the verdict comes back guilty on all significant counts. Kody Brown is sentenced to 14 years in federal prison and fined $3.8 million in restitution to Mary Janelle and the family trust. The one-time sprawling Coyote Pass property is confiscated and auctioned off. The Brown Empire, a TV reality show phenomenon, is taken apart bit by bit. His attempted domination of the story now has a new writer. Just, life goes on, but everything's different. Robyn moves out with an undetected, staying out of the spotlight. Christine, long gone, releases a brief statement. Sometimes, walking away is the most powerful. Janelle begins a non-profit for women wanting financial independence after abusive. Mary creates a foundation focused on legal aid for spouse and common law marriage. And what about Mary herself? She never glances back. In an emotional interview a year later, stands on the porch of her Utah cabin, a cup of coffee in one hand, a sunrise sky. I lost 3 decades, she whispered, but I found myself, and that's more than any land or loss. The camera sweeps over the mountains as she adds a final comment. People will say the story of a man who fell, but it's not. It's the story of who rose. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about transformation, turning silence strength, and betrayal. The screen goes black. The story is where it should have all along, with Mary strong. And as millions tune in to the final broadcast, one question hangs. If you were offered the opportunity to write your life story, be brave enough to. Was justice really served, or did Kody get off too lightly? Your voice counts, just like Mary did.